if you're going to watch a show, you're going to accept this is the world that they're working from, and it's not exactly our world, but every show has a reality that they live in. And we know as doctors and medical types, it doesn't always fit our reality. And my job is to keep it as real as I can.
Dr. Oren Gottfried is a neurosurgeon and entertainment professional that lends his medical expertise to hit television series such as The Good Doctor and Chicago Med, and has consulted on over 70 television series. He is also a director of neurosciences for Duke Health at Duke University and a vice chair for the Department of Neurosurgery.
How does this work? What do they ask you to do? Are you able to tell us what shows you're working on?
One of the first shows I worked on formally was Royal Pains, and shows that I currently work on, Chicago Med, there's Brilliant Minds. Because I'm passionate about it, I think any story can be more realistic. When the writers are under deadlines and they're just trying to satisfy hundreds of other people, it's hard to stick to the medicine, but I try to make it convenient. I try to give them the simplest pivot that's going to make it more accurate. It's hard and it's good, but at the end of the day, my work's not always reflected in the final product.
Welcome to the Interesting MD podcast, the show about what doctors do when we aren't seeing patients and how this can help us find balance and prevent burnout. I'm your host, Rob Beck. Welcome back to another episode of the Interesting MD podcast. I'm your host, Rob Beck. And today I am very excited about our guest because he is going to tell us all about what inspires the next generation of medical doctors and how everybody learns about medicine and how cool it is. So I have Dr. Oren Gottfried here, but first I want to tell everybody thank you so much again for reaching out. I have been getting a lot of emails and a lot of questions, lots of comments on YouTube and social media. So thank you very much. I'm trying to respond to everybody. So your emails, if I haven't gotten back to you yet, I will get back to you very quickly. So thank you again very much. So without further ado, I do want to introduce Dr. Oren Gottfried. He is a neurosurgeon. He's going to tell you all about himself, but I found him because I was doing an internet search on trying to figure out how doctors can become medical consultants. And so Dr. Gottfried is here to tell us all about how he does it, how he got into it, what it's all about, and just more about him. So, Oren, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Very excited about this. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So most people, when I guess my age, people who are a little bit older probably grew up watching like Quincy MD or MASH or something like that. I kind of caught the tail end of MASH when I was a small child. But kind of the big medical show when I was growing up, kind of a teenager, university years, was ER. And that's kind of the show that really got a lot of people thinking about a career in medicine. And it's gone on to progress from there, you know, Grey's Anatomy, and then now all of the different shows of which you're going to talk about. And so it really got me thinking about, how do you get into those jobs? Who do they have talking about those people? So I found Oren, and I am very, very excited about it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, first of all? Where you're from, where you grew up, go to school, train? What kind of specialty do you do?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Arizona. I did my medical school and college in Arizona, and I'm a neurosurgeon. I did a neurosurgery residency at University of Utah, did some fellowships within spine surgery, and I'm faculty now at Duke University.
Fantastic. Now, how long have you been out as an attending and on faculty at Duke?
It's been about 16 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. You look way too young for being an attending for 16 years, so looking pretty good. Doing really well.
Filters. Not sleeping.
That's right. All right. So had you on here because I found you as a medical consultant, but I actually have been following you on social media and think that you're actually pretty interesting just to follow and all the different medical content that you put out there. But how in the world did you get involved for the first time in medical consulting, and what shows do you work for or have you worked with?
So, I mean, this all started by accident. It was 2010. I was new faculty at Duke University and probably only been there for about 3 months. And I had a assistant, and my assistant put on a Post-it that there's a doctor in California that needs to talk about a patient. Now, right away, I was thinking, why would any doctor want to send a patient from California? Maybe, some people refer a family member. There's always something good there where it can be helpful. But right away, he said, please don't hang up on me. I don't actually have a patient. Well, not a living patient. I have a patient on a TV show that I need you to help me on. And I was like, wow, this sounds perfect. Like, I'm a storyteller type person. I have 3 children. They're, older now, but I love telling stories, making up stories, just crafting, fictional scenarios. That's just what I do. And so here I have someone that was saying, use your neurosurgery. I didn't add that part, but this was a neurosurgery story. I don't even remember the details because it's like 15, 16 years ago, but it was something like a neurosurgeon needs to solve his wife's illness, and he solved every case in his life, but he can't figure out what's going on with his wife. So right away, I just threw out, a bunch of stories in our initial call, and I worked with this individual through this pilot and a number of shows, and one show's just led to another. It's really, just like medicine and referrals, it's word of mouth. And so I put my all into every time I get consulted. Sometimes it's just a one-off thing where a writer I know from another show has a new show and they have a question about the medicine. And sometimes I get hired for a whole season, but I just treat it like it's my patient sitting right in front of me. The same energy I give to my patients, I put into each one of these cases. And fortunately, I'm just riding this ride for 15, 16 years, and it's not slowed down. It's getting bigger and better, and it's still fun. And the original reasons I started to do it are still there. And I just have a fun network of so many writers and producers and actors that come to me as their go-to. So it's like, it's a privilege and it's fun.
That's a lot of fun. All right. So do you remember what the first case was? Like, what did you come up with? Like, what was it, like a prion disease or?
Yeah, I mean, I do some, it depends on the show, and we might get into this, but every show has a reality that they live in. And we know as doctors and medical types, it doesn't always fit our reality, but if you're going to watch a show, you're going to accept this is the world that they're working from. And it's not exactly our world, but there are commonalities. So I do remember. So one of the first shows I worked on formally was Royal Pains, USA show, network show. And it's about a doctor. It's always summer on that show. And he's taking care of people that need a private, concierge type.
Is that
doctor.
the guy?
Yeah.
Is that the one that he was like in the Hamptons or something?
Of course.
Like
I was
that, right?
blanking on the Hamptons.
So, yeah.
So this is the
he was in
doctor
the Hamptons,
to the Hamptons.
right?
And what's fun is he wouldn't always have, all the tools he needed. He would, MacGyver things together to save lives.
Yeah.
Naturally, like I said a moment ago, I had to accept the reality that sure, we would be doing all these things in a hospital, but this is a TV show. And my job is to keep it as real as I can, understanding that there's still a premise for the show and I have to stick to those rules. So I remember pitching a case, and anytime I say anything that I've done, it's a team. Writing is very much these days. There's not like one writer writing every episode on their own in an office. It's a group think. And I pitched an idea, Parsonage Turner. So, like someone could present with very rapid onset of pain in the shoulder, moving on to paralysis with numbness, but it doesn't, again, I'm a neurosurgeon, so neuro exams are what I do, but it doesn't fit a particular distribution. It's multiple nerves. And I remember it was like a polo player. I didn't introduce that, but just think about, and you can have it on both sides. So the impact of having sudden Parsonage Turner. So I actually, I'd fly to LA periodically. I pitched this story to the writers. And then when it made it on air, and granted, the writer took off with these ideas and did a great job, but it was just so cool to see that first story and just know, I have a journal. I've kept a journal for the 15 years and just know that this was a story I pitched and it led to, the A story. Many TV medical shows have multiple ongoing stories, but there is their main story. And I think it was the A story. So it was kind of fun.
Wow, that's really cool. And so did they ever say how like somebody in LA got your information? I mean, obviously you're good, but 3 months out of residency good or 3 months out of fellowship good. I mean, you're like, oh, okay. Did they ever say how they found you?
Yeah, I mean, I get it all the time. Like when I'm on set or talking to writers, talking to new writers, everybody assumes I'm in LA. And they're like, I've even had shows say, we need you at 3:00, on Monday in the room. And I'm like, okay, first of all, I don't even live on your side of the country, but I mean, people that know me know better, but even pre-COVID, like I was doing a lot there wasn't Zoom, but I was doing a lot by phone, email. I mean, most of what I do is either pitching stories, verbally or written. I'm reading scripts, so it works well. Would it be nice if I was in Los Angeles and could actually, go see everybody in person? Yeah, that would be like so fun for me. But in the big picture, the work I do it's not hard to be peripheral. And I've had emergency calls from the set, from wherever the show is being shot, and answer it. The other thing that's important is everybody recognizes that I am a full-time neurosurgeon. This is something I do because I have a passion for, but I've never given up on my day work. And there are times where I'm not available to the TV projects, but fortunately I've been able to balance the two worlds.
That's really fascinating. So when I first started, I was about 2 months in, month and a half, 2 months in, into my private practice in Nashville. So I live in Victoria, British Columbia now, but I started out in Nashville. And one thing about doing primary care, I kind of had a traditional internal medicine practice there where we would see all of our own patients, do primary care, but then we would admit all of our patients to the hospital. You talk to everybody and everybody's a musician, right? In Nashville. And so it's like, what do you do for a living? Oh, well, I'm a musician. And they're like, and a barista, and it's, or like, I'm a server. I, do this, and this. But I actually, with our clinic, we had kind of a high friction point with a lot of the country music stars and a lot of the people there. And I kind of had well, not really accidental, but somebody referred to me who, was a country music star, but I had just moved from New Orleans. And so I wasn't really sure how all of that worked. And I had been out of Tennessee for 10 years. So I didn't really know all the country music people, and you just don't hear country music in New Orleans. And it turned out like it was just kind of this serendipitous thing, and a super nice guy. And he made a couple of jokes about how I wouldn't really know his music unless I was a teenage girl. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. It turns out a couple of years later, I ended up going on tour with him. And it's just kind of these weird, you get phone calls and you just start making connections. I totally understand exactly how this works. But it's just about knowing somebody and saying yes, right? Like, I mean, you could have hung up on that guy.
Yeah.
And I can see that you're kind of like me, that you are willing to pull that string a little bit, right? I'm sure that you probably don't say yes to absolutely everything that comes across your plate. And thank you for saying yes to my email,
Of course.
by the way. But I think that if you have such this interesting skill set, and if you just say yes to a few things, you just pull a string or two, that all of us have these opportunities to do something absolutely crazy that has nothing to do with medicine whatsoever, like a usual practice of medicine. But yeah, like I saw that show Royal Pains, and I was, my wife and I had just started our practice, and we were like, oh, that would be really funny to actually do that. And then 3 years later, I'm actually out on the road with 6 tour buses, 3 helicopters, 2 Sprinter vans, and like 100 people, where I'm the team doctor for a 24-hour Guinness World Record thing. And it was just a lot of fun. And, just kind of making yourself available and just saying, yeah, I can do these things. Sure. Yeah. And just get to meet all kinds of really fun and interesting people, and pretty great. I mean, have you found that the more you say yes, the more people are willing to ask?
Yeah, I struggle with ever saying no. I mean, if it's anything, this was an easy win. I mean, it was just like, of course I'll do it. And then at the beginning of like TV work, it's natural. I would say to him, like, am I going to get credit for this? And like, credit's very complex, and it's usually assigned at the beginning of a season and you're hired. So a lot of the work so much of what I've done over the 15 years was completely voluntary, uncredited work. But because I said yes, things led to credited work. Things led to, some ability to get paid. Obviously, the core part is I just like it. I don't like turning on TV and changing channels or streaming something else because the medicine insulted me. And I'm not just doing neurosurgery consulting. I'm doing all of medicine. I'm standing up for every medical field, and sometimes even just science. And because I'm passionate about it, where I think any story can be more realistic. I think when the writers are under deadlines and they're just trying to satisfy, hundreds of other people, it's hard to stay loyal to the medicine because they're answering to so many different people. But I try to make it convenient. I try to give them the simplest pivot that's going to make it more accurate. And I know someone watching it just cold, watching the show, they might think, who is the medical person? This is just ridiculous. But they didn't see the version before I got involved. Like whatever they have to say. They also didn't see my notes. I do get like the opposite of fan mail. I get people asking, what were you thinking here? And so the weird thing is I actually take every episode, every suggestion like a research project. I actually keep a bibliography for all my medical notes, and I have references. So for any TV show that I'm fully hired, I might have 40 references for an episode. Now, my notes, even, I list the works cited bibliography. But the point is, if the show didn't end up accurate, I have notes that exist that show my pitch. Now, no one's ever held me to actually show my notes. But my point is, whatever's not accurate, it's not because I was lazy. It's because I couldn't convince, you have to be a persuasive person. I couldn't convince the writer, and it's usually a timing issue. There's just not enough time for them to pivot to my idea, but I can tinker with little things. I can change a word here or there. So it's hard and it's good, but it's like at the end of the day, my work's not always reflected in the final product.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you're just kind of at the whims of other people. But I joke with my patients all the time when they're like, what does an internist do? And I'm like, they don't make TV shows about what I do. I sit around, I talk to people, I sometimes make bad jokes, and, we have long, serious conversations. And then I write an order for something and something happens. And, don't really write a whole lot of TV shows about that. Scrubs is different, but I think it's okay to take some license to it, right? And if a neurosurgeon is like, oh my gosh, that's not exactly the way that the physical exam finding would come out. I mean, it's like, come on, there's like 4,000 of you in the US, come on. It's perfectly good enough for.
What's the target audience of a show? The target audience isn't an MD or DO. It's not a nurse. It's the general population. And while I want the show to be at the level, if we're talking neurosurgery, I want a neurosurgeon to be proud of how it was, executed. At the end of the day, if primary care accepts it, if someone in their residency, someone in medical school, I try to bring it to that level. But at the end, it's not a documentary. No one's watching a fully factual nonfiction documentary. No one would tune in if it was that,
right.
So it would be like a lecture for medical students. No one wants to watch that. Even the medical students don't want to watch that. So it's like, I don't know. This is the balancing act I maintain, but I feel guilty when things are kind of even ridiculous by, my standards. And, there's some wins and there's some really good wins, and there's no team is batting. No one's at 100% undefeated. So I just take it as I can.
I mean, what's the point of these shows is to entertain people, but it's also to inspire people. I mean, again, if I were to go back and watch all the episodes of ER, I know that those are not anywhere close to accurate all the time. They're not batting 1,000 there, but I mean, honestly,
but it sounded good. Yeah.
Right? It sounded really awesome.
Yeah.
And it really did inspire a lot of people to want to go into emergency medicine or pursue medicine or nursing, and just think that, oh my God, this is such a great career about being a paramedic or something along those lines. And I think that that's what you're doing as well with this. You're just inspiring the next generation of doctors. And how cool is that? I mean, you reach out and a 13-year-old kid's watching your show. My kids watch all of these shows and they love it. And we don't sit there and say, oh, that's not accurate. And that's a surgeon would never diagnose that. And, whatever, who cares? My kids love it. They think it's really fascinating. And, one of them's in science and doing immunology right now. And the other one's doing bioengineering. And my daughter's in high school and thinking about all kinds of things like this. So I think it's wonderful to have something that inspires them. And if they find out 10, 15 years down the road that maybe that wasn't exactly accurate, that's all right. It wasn't a lie.
Yeah. Well, I like your philosophy, and many people are like-minded, but some people are just so focused on their specialty, and it's an emotional thing, that their specialty gets mentioned. And, now someone else is doing a procedure they only do. So I understand when people are coming at me, and doctors and nurses, people that write me, but I just let them know how much I put into. I mean, there are shows where I put in 40 hours per episode, and it's another question how I find that time and how I balance it. But
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
something I'm just skipping around like, I'll just do a little here, a little there. No, it's a lot of work. And there are shows where I have to approve every single visual. If there's a chart on the show, if there's a medication hanging, I have to sign off on every one. So I mean, there's shows where I'm getting 100 emails per day, and it's like,
Oh,
so
wow.
there's no skipping steps. Or but again, people are judging by the final thing they see. But just like medicine, there's so many little tiny, conveyor belt. There's so many processes going on at the same time, and they run shows like, it's amazing how efficient they are. I've often said, like, we could learn in medicine how to be more efficient in our process. But I mean, they put together from an episode idea to breaking a story to the outline to scripts and multiple iterations of the script to stuff on set and props and actors and special effects and post production. It's like, it's just amazing how they're working on multiple episodes at once, but they move quickly. I mean, it's just like fascinating. And it's another reason I can't always sway them, because by the time I'm giving notes, they've already moved on to 100 other people's notes. But
Yeah,
it's
like you push
awesome.
here and
Yeah.
then, something like, no, I'm sorry, we've already filmed that. That's for 3 episodes down the
Yeah.
road. So,
Yeah.
wow, that's really fast. Okay, so how does this work? What do they ask you to do? So you come in, and let's just say that this is a typical. I mean, are you able to tell us what shows you're working on or
I mean,
what
they're all
shows you have
posted
worked
on
on?
like IMDb. So yeah, I work on multiple shows. At any one time, I might have several shows ongoing, and it's a balancing act. And I have all my writers in mind, so I know when they're writing me. But every show has had me have a different role. But in some capacity, I'm pitching ideas where I just have an interesting idea before the writers even, they know what they need to do from a storyline, but they might not have plugged in the medicine. So I could either just I can sit in with a writer's room on a Zoom and just pitch ideas. From there, there's times where writers have their formula of what they need, but don't have the medical. They don't have an idea on the medical. They just kind of know where the story's going to go and which characters are involved. And I listen to that, and then I realize, oh, this disease works really well, or this fascinating surgery will really go nicely. And I'm really into the visuals. When I'm pitching stories, I'm thinking about how the audience is going to look at things. Like when you show a patient's perspective with a neurological deficit, like seeing the world a certain way, like you could just put the camera into their eyes, and it's fascinating for everyone, the audience. Or a surgery that I just think would play out well. Obviously, you have to consider that you can't have a lot of blood or gore, but something you could pull off in the OR that'd be a real champion hero move. So I might pitch stories that they already have the ideas. And then I'm reading outlines, I'm reading scripts, I'm providing notes, and I go line item through. Most scripts are 50 to 60 pages. I'm going through it all and just giving suggestions for word changes. By the time it's a script, I can't change the disease. I can't change big things, but I could certainly change like what labs they're getting, what imaging they're getting.
Right.
And then, we get into the actual production where I might get images of how the actor might have a prosthetic on to show, a wound. So I'm getting pictures from set on some. And there are shows that have an on-set person. So I'm not suggesting I do it all. Some of my shows, there's an on-set person that works full time. It could be a medic, it could be a nurse, it could be a doctor, but I'm still supplementing, like I'm helping bridge what did we think when we wrote it to what's now. And so sometimes I'm watching, like the director's cut on the show and just saying, how did it come out? So again, every show has a different role for me. As we talked about earlier, I do say yes to it. So even if I didn't have a role, like some shows, I read out all the medical terms so the actors know how a doctor would say it,
Right.
So a lot of different steps. So you asked about shows. I mean, shows that I currently work on, Chicago Med. I've been involved with that show for many, many years. There's Doc, a newer show. They're about to show their second season. There's Brilliant Minds, also second season shows about to start. So I may be forgetting others, but those are some of my main projects right now.
That's really awesome. Okay. So with your involvement, you're going in, do you ever go on set, or
Yes.
it sounds like you have?
It's not my main job. I work more on the writer's room end, but I mean, I've acted, I think I'm up to like 9 or 10 episodes of acting. So obviously there's no way to do Zoom or peripheral.
Right.
Most of what I can do is I can do it from North Carolina, but I can't do the acting part. With one exception,
Right.
I was a voice actor for a number of episodes, and I got to do my voice acting from a studio in Raleigh. So I didn't actually have to fly. I just went from clinic or the OR to a recording studio and record my voice. That was a cool gig because I didn't even have to leave the state. But when I do act, I go for a day. I don't like to miss work. I'm very dedicated to my patients and my roles as professor at Duke University. So I might take a day off per year to help with an episode or go act.
Oh, really? Okay.
A small
So
part with
that
my whole role.
Very cool. So what did you have to do? I'm taking a little side trip here on the voice acting. So what was that? Just like a read over? I mean, I'm in my mind, I hear like, the Grey's Anatomy voiceover at the start or the end of the show or something like that. But what were you doing? Like I'm trying to visualize that.
Yeah, I don't want to over pitch my role because I feel like I'm an assistant to these shows. But
Yeah.
there was a season of Chicago Med where the showrunners, many of the shows I get the bosses of the show just calling me and saying, we need to work on something. And so we often did that. And one of my assignments was we want to develop a really innovative OR. And so that, they didn't know what they needed and I didn't know what they needed, but we just worked on this for several weeks and there were other individuals involved, but I helped them create, an awesome, an OR that might be available in 5 years or in the future. And we basically had an AI assistant where the surgeon could ask for advice. The AI would give, feedback on the surgery, how things are going, things that you couldn't put together. Like the mind as a surgeon, you're putting all this information as you go, but it's like someone that could see the vitals because a surgeon's not able to keep their eye on the vitals. They trust the anesthesia and anesthesia's better at following the vitals and controlling the situation. So this AI would bridge it all, but they could actually talk to the AI. So it was called OR 2.0 and it was a very important part of that season. And after all the pitching and describing and I do a lot of Google documents. I showed what I thought it would look like. In the end, there are professionals that know how to make it look like it needs to look, but it was just my 2 cents. Eventually I read for the part, so I was there's a lot of lines for this OR 2.0 and I had to audition. I don't just get to walk into things and get privilege for being part of the team, but I read for it and I got hired. And I think I did 9 or 10 episodes where I had a significant number of lines, but I just I could see the footage. They would shoot the scenes. This is most post shooting the episode, and I could see what they did, and I would just read a bunch of lines, and they made my voice sound a little bit more robotic. I think I got hired because I can do the robot thing pretty naturally without trying, but they also gave me a more metallic or robotic voice. It was fun. I knew it wouldn't last forever, but it was a fun gig.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And that's not something, again, that most doctors get to do. So, and surely this has to be something where you look and they say, okay, we want to come up with something that's just absolutely crazy. And you think, well, yeah, I'm in the OR all the time, every day, or most days of the week. And this is what I think would be really, really cool to have. Right. And then you get a team with a huge budget and an unbelievably creative mind and talents that can kind of make anything. Right.
And then it needed to be iterated on. They didn't want it to come across as science fiction. They wanted something that could be real, but just a few years. So there were times where can we pull this off? Is this too much? And, they had things where the surgeons looking at a augmented reality or virtual reality right in front of them. They're switching pages, looking it around it. To me, there is that technology. I got to put every possible idea that's out there and just made it ready to go, plug and play, but no one's put it together like this. I mean, it was the whole OR was thinking while the surgeon was working and every wall was a screen. So everything was possible, but it was kind of fun because I got to basically describe what I dreamed would be a perfect OR. Obviously it's TV, so the things had to go wrong, but still it was fun to be able to help craft things like that.
That's really cool. And I mean, honestly, just like most science fiction, starts to set the target of where people look at that and they think, okay, well, actually we could make that work. And that's what most science fiction is, right? Oh, we want to land people on the moon. Okay, well, we can land people on the moon. We want to send people to Mars. All right, well, we can send people to Mars. We can work on that. And hey, if we want AI integrated into an operating room, that's actually very realistic, right? But it just takes some creativity and it takes a little bit of time. And again, not only do you get to inspire the next generation of physicians and nurses, you might be inspiring the next generation of operating rooms. Like, that's kind of cool.
There was a fun
Right.
spin-off from this. So basically, academic neurosurgeon is me. I pitch this futuristic, but still fake fictional OR. And it led to a Nature article where they were discussing the ethics of using AI in medicine, but it was all based on, they took an inventory of every single scenario that the AI OR was used and like how it determined the pathway for the doctors and the team. And I'm like, I've never had a Nature article, but it's fascinating that this character I played, this robot I played on a TV show led to, a full Nature article about it. It was just kind of like,
what was their final conclusion of that? Did they say
but,
proceed with caution or don't have this?
Exactly.
Or...
Yeah, they talked about all the positives. They basically divided up positive, where it was a value add, where it was confusing, where it would have been better to never use the technology, and where it was just completely worse to have it. And they divided up the scenarios. In the end, they said that the show reflected like the reality of using AI in medicine.
That's really, really cool. How fun is that? All right. So how many people are doing this? How many people do you run into, collaborate with, and what's the job market like? What's the landscape like out there?
Yeah. So, some shows, they're usually someone local for the set work. So, someone would have to live in like Toronto or Chicago or Los Angeles. But I've met a number of people along the way. I'd say I've probably met maybe 30 doctors or nurses doing similar work. And just to, it's something important that I need to mention on shows like Chicago Med, there's like 10 consultants. So it's not like just me, but I do have shows where I'm the main person and some where I'm almost the only person. But like the shows, I haven't worked on Grey's Anatomy, but they actually have like an internship where any surgery resident can spend time with them and they rotate it. So they have a very formula, it's very specific how they use their consultants. Like they figured it out, the formula. But other shows just have like someone for each specialty. And then there are shows where I'm covering the whole show. Like there's one on-set person and there's one writer's room person, and it's just the two of us doing it all. So obviously responsibilities on those shows, I'm doing a lot more, whereas there's a lot more divided work when they have more people involved.
Yeah.
But
I would imagine that like bigger shows, bigger budgets, more people, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of how it goes, or not really? Not necessarily.
I don't know the budgets. There are specific times where I inadvertently get to see the budgets, and they're nice and generous. But I think it comes down to how the showrunner and the executive producers want to run the show. There are medical shows that don't necessarily want to have a big staff of people. It's easier when you have a showrunner or the executive producer needs to talk to someone. They don't want to have 10 different people to go to. It's good to have the one person. So it just depends on how they like to run things. Many doctors are really busy. So I find with the shows that have multiple people, they'll just hit up each one of us. And you've already identified this to me, basically. I'm the yes person. So they usually can find me. Like I can get back. Something about my role is if I didn't answer right away, someone else could. Like sadly, I drop everything besides taking care of patients and important family events to go read a script or to answer a question, because that things just move too quickly. And if I don't, the story could get out of control or get to like crazy zone. So, it's, you kind of
like guys, back.
Yeah. So I have to respond very quickly. And I'm not saying any writer wants to go there, but part of the duty, the thing that's, we talk about all the good of it, is a demanding field. And, because many of the other doctors are actually taking care of patients and are busy, I end up answering questions for probably more so, but at the same time, I get to do what I like to do. So it's fun.
How do you balance all of that? So you talked about I think you said you had 3 kids. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. How old are they now?
19, 15, I'm 13.
Okay. Yep. Mine are 19, 18, and 15. So
oh, wow.
I get it. So they're almost to the point of like where they don't really care. Like my kids just want to like cool text and like, okay, yep, checking in. You're good.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what age that starts, but it seems like that's all. Yeah. And it starts earlier and earlier,
right.
Everybody's a teenager, even when they're 9, or 8. Like,
yeah.
When I was younger, you really were a teen when you were a teen, but kids are just like, they're precocious. Everyone's kind of like an adult when they're still a kid.
Yeah. So do they keep you humble? What do they think about all of this stuff?
I think they've become like desensitized to it since I've worked on this. I've been at this for
I
so
guess it's been
long.
most of their life, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's less exciting if I appear on air. I think it's still cool to them, but we're not at the point where they'll watch every episode I'm on. I'm not saying I'm on a lot, but it's like, it's lost a little. I have to ask them, well, you want to watch the episode with me? I mean, many children don't even watch TV. Everything's streamed. Like,
Right.
I turn on the TV. I'm an old man. Like, come watch the episode with me. But that's kind of how it's, but they like it. It's not something that's completely novel. But when I meet a new celebrity, like I always talk about what each of them enjoy about this. And my oldest 19-year-old, we play the 6 degrees of separation. It started with like Kevin Bacon, and I can honestly, she can figure this out for me, but we can get to anybody through like 1 degree just because I've been in this field for like 15 years. So she loves that she could name anybody and I could tell her my pathway. Like we play that you actually have to have met the person. I can't just like work on a show they worked on, but I've had to talk to them or collaborate with them. So the 19-year-old loves that. And yeah, I can go with each of them, but there's some fun stuff. It's a part of our relationship, but I have this fun job.
That's awesome. I mean, like something that they're proud of and something that they think is cool. And they'll probably never tell you that they think you're cool, but they'll tell you they're friends. They'll drop your name at a party at college, right?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah,
they'll drop it there. I don't have that. Back when we were in Nashville, there was a lot of fun with that, with the music industry and just being able to go out with people and see people. It was a lot of fun. What about movies? Do you work on movies at all, or is this?
The worlds don't cross over. I mean, you hear about actors that kind of work between the worlds, but I feel like most of the people I work with are pure TV. Naturally, some of the actors have done, they do both, but I feel in other aspects of production and writing, there's not a lot of crossover. So I've had some very small entry into working on movies, but it just hasn't developed. And I don't even know if the world of, medical consulting, what I think, I've worked on a number of pilots. So, to me, the pilot is like the writer or two writers, and they, sort of have a team, but it's real early on. And so when I worked in movies, it was more like at that level before things get really busy and a lot of people involved. And then it's very similar. I'm just like offering ideas, pitching stories, answering questions on the reality. The same goes for books, like fictional books. I've worked on them as well, as a consultant.
Really?
But I just find all these worlds don't cross over much. So I don't know if I'll ever have much of a career in movies. It just hasn't gone there. But there have been some times where I thought it could eventually get to movies.
I guess it's a little bit harder for the movies, to have just like a movie that follows somebody in the hospital, right? Like, and that seems kind of like that's a little bit more for like a recurring drama series or something like that, where you have like a bigger. But I don't know. I guess maybe I haven't.
Medical scene, they probably need a consultant. If like there's a key character having a surgery, but it would be a quick interaction. It's not like they need me for a whole season where there's so many different things. So it might just be a phone call or two. And I've done that, but the writers, everything I do is driven by working with writers that then use me for other shows, and they keep me in mind. These writers aren't crossing over and doing movies and TV. It's just a different set of folks.
Right. It's a different skill set and different group of people. So earlier, I don't want to keep you too long, but earlier you had talked about how you do most of this for free. You do some paid work? Is that right? And how does that go?
And I meant more historically that I put in my time before I was getting hired. And, an example is, when I worked on Elementary for the full 7 seasons, but I came in purely voluntary, and I didn't know any other way because I just done mostly voluntary work. But at the end, like by the 7th season, I asked, do you mind if I get a technical credit? And they were very generous. They said, of course. But, had I not brought it up, I wouldn't have even had any credit. I worked.
They were going to offer it.
But they gave me some fun things along the way. They let me go on set like early. I think it was episode 4 in the first season. It was 2012, still new to TV. And I got thrown in. I was the on-set person. And granted, it's not a pure medical show. It's solving a murder.
That's the Sherlock Holmes show, right?
Yeah. So they're solving the murder with, Joan Watson in this case is putting it all together with her medical knowledge. And the Sherlock character was just brilliant. So of course, he had just science knowledge. And so I'd help them craft not just how the person would get away with the crime, but how the team would solve it. But I got thrown in, it's like episode 4 or so. First season, I just got to go on set. And like at this point in 2012, I hadn't done a lot of TV, and I didn't know the etiquette. I didn't know like different terms, you know, I was really naive, and it was so fun. At that time I spent like 4 or 5 days with them, and it was a very medically intense episode, but I got to hang out with all the actors. I got to just see how production works. I feel like now, 13 years later, it's like I walk on set, I kind of know my role. I know how things go. I know what everybody else's roles are. I know how to play cool, not get in the way. But that was a fun experience because it was almost like being at Disney World or Disneyland as a kid. It's just like was cameras everywhere, just making something look real that wasn't. It was like a hospital that had been abandoned, and just walking into a hospital. It was in New York, but it was, I wouldn't be able to trace back where it was. It was just like in a place I would never visit. It was just fascinating. And
Right.
They just have an abandoned hospital that becomes a real hospital for it. So it was fun. So, I mean, things like that, they couldn't pay me. Like that was, priceless. Like they couldn't pay me that experience was better than anything they could have given me and financially. So I've always been excited by the challenge of the job and doing things. So early on, a lot of what I did was voluntary, but nowadays, if I got hired to work on a show for a whole season, you get a contract. How it works is there's so many people. There's a lot of, just standard people you need to make a show work. The medical consultant's not a standard. The show doesn't have to have a medical consultant. So I have to advocate for myself because shows could just ask me to be a volunteer, ask me to work without credit. But fortunately, I can let them know how the last 10 productions did things. And even if they don't know how to handle the medical consultant, I have knowledge because I worked on other shows, and I can let them know. And every show has been very nice to me with that because I just let them know what I'm worth to other shows and let them figure out what I'm worth to them.
So obviously you're not going to stop being a neurosurgeon based off of what you're doing currently. I would imagine it's probably not a neurosurgeon salary at this point, but it is worth your time, right? So when I went on tour, again, it was for 2 days, and I had talked to some other friends who had kind of been in the industry, not as a medical consultant, but just saying, hey, I think the advice was whatever you make in a day, just double it. And they were like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yep, here you go. And that was kind of like a respectful thing. But is that roughly, I mean, I'm not talking about like, doubling whatever you make in the day, but is that kind of roughly how it works, that they give you something, it's enough to make it worth your while to miss work or to take your time away from your family or whatever else at that point?
It's more the part about it's an experience for me. So, I mean, obviously there are sensitive topics, but the safest thing I could say is I'd say my worth is about 5% of a neurosurgeon. So like if I take a day off, I'm getting paid, I'm reimbursed on 5% of what it would be. So I'm not, it's not the same. I'm doing this for the experience. I'm doing it it's been a lifelong, now it's a third of my life. It's been a long-term thing I like to do. So I'm doing it because it's fun. I have really good stories, and I thank you for letting me share some of them, but it's like these stories to me are everything, like what I've been able to experience. So I've never looked at it as like you're gonna,
your
make
retirement
it fair
plan
financially. I'm doing it because it's fun. But then when I get like comments where things aren't real, I'm like, you don't know how much I've done for, there have been shows where it's minimum wage what I'm making, and it's like, but I still love it. I love what I do. So,
well, I mean, again, most of the people, this target audience is for doctors, and so you make enough money on the side, like you make enough money in your real job. And so what I want this podcast to be is to encourage people to do something to relax, use your creative juices, do something completely different than being at the bedside, to give yourself a little bit of a break and to give yourself an outlet for creativity or fun or just a new experience, whether it's hobbies of scuba diving, triathlon, being a pilot or whatever else. I think that this is one of the really cool things of being a medical consultant for this, that you just get to do something that is so weird and so different from anything else that we get to do and pursue it. Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine. I wish that we had like 12-part episode here to where we could hear all of your most amazing and hilarious stories.
It's just fun. I mean, it's like, and the adventures are different, like, I don't know, a few weeks ago I was on set, I got to act, and it's like, just to like take a day off from my work as a neurosurgeon and just hang out with actors for a whole day. And I pick their brain more than they pick mine. Like, I want to know what it's like to be a full-time actor and get into their head and understand their life. But they're like wanting to know how this scene could be, like, how could they be more medically accurate? So it's like we're both benefiting, but I've met some really fun people that there'd be no world that I would run into them. I mean, like when you're in Nashville, you're running into, probably a lot of fancy celebrities, music artists, but it's like, I wouldn't be running into these actors. I wouldn't be running into, like, there was a world famous director, and it's like, I would never cross paths with these individuals, but it's like, it's fun where you're just sitting around chatting, like actors, the whole set, everybody takes lunch together and you're sitting around with like everybody involved in production and just chatting. They just have such a different life. And it's just, I find it fascinating just like meeting new patients. I love hearing everybody's story. I'm sure you get a lot out of the podcast, just learning people. But when I go on set or I work with the writers, I'm just getting insight into a whole world that I have no clue on. And it's so fun.
That's wonderful. So the big lesson here is just say yes. Just say yes. Try something out. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. But like, it really, if you're just available, you can do some really, really fun and amazing things that you never think would be possible. So how can people get in touch with you if they either want to ask some advice, give very positive feedback? We don't need
I like that.
Nasty comments, right? But how do people get in touch with you? How do they find
you? My email address is how most people get me. I mean, I have a website that's my name. A lot of people just send me an email through the website. It's just literally OrenGottfried.com. So people can just you can send me an email there. It's pretty accessible, but on socials too. I'm not on YouTube, but I'm on every other social.
Okay. Fair enough. Yep. I have been following you on Instagram recently, so I'm loving the content. So keep it up. It's all really fascinating stuff. So
thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share this really, really cool thing. And again, I'm really jealous because you really are inspiring the next generation of doctors, nurses, paramedics, like whatever, that people see medicine, they see healthcare, they see it in a cool light. You're doing what Top Gun did for naval aviators, right? Mm-hmm. Inspiring everybody to want to go and do this. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I enjoyed getting to talk with you.
Yeah, this is great. Well, thank you, and I'll talk to you soon, hopefully. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Interesting MD podcast. Please check out my content on YouTube at Interesting MD and follow me on TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at The Interesting MD and on X at Interesting MD. If you have comments or questions and want to get in touch with me or any of my guests, please DM me on socials or email me at rob@interestingmd.com. If you have any ideas for a show and you want to share your hobbies with me or don't know where to get started on your own project, you can email ideas@interestingmd.com. Please like and subscribe to the podcast and YouTube channel to get the latest content. Much appreciation to Falter Media for editing, producing, and posting all Interesting MD content. Check them out, because if they can do this for me, imagine what they can do for you. See you next week.